What up, virtual people? Welcome to episode 48 of VCR Redux. We take your favorite franchises out of the analog era and bring them back to 2022. I'm your host, pop culture punk Chris Stiles, and my usual co-host with the most, Ian, is sick tonight, but we have three radical guests to help us stay on track. First up, our own honorary third host from Rick Barth in the line. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. Mickey Torres is on the show.
What's up, everyone?
And in a very, very special event here on VCR Redux, we have both halves of Retrofiend Radio, makers of the finest Canon and martial arts documentaries on the planet. Their newly released The Making of Riverbend with Sam Furstenberg is available on YouTube now, where it's already racked up tens of thousands of views. Dustin, Nino, and Kristian Smock are on the show. Ow!
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
Thank you so much for coming on tonight, guys. I'm so stoked for the double dose of Retrofiend. Proof positive that two heads are better than one. We are here to get, speaking of two heads, we are here today to get two kinds of foobar, the Kurt Russell variety and that of the Stallone zone as well. That's right, folks. It's time for Tango Cash 2, Gran-Damage. But before we can get Robert Zadar on the phone, we need to talk about how Tango Cash came into our lives and what we love about it. That means it's also time for you guys watching at home to dish on how it came into your lives. We talking VHS, Laserdisc, theaters, cable. Hit us up in the live chat and let us know. So, my dudes, do you remember the first time you watched Tango and Cash?
I do. I saw it with my dad on VHS one weekend. We rented it together.
Such a great bonding story.
It's a
right
perfect
there.
like a rental movie, you know, popcorn on a Friday night type of movie, especially with your dad, you know.
Such a guy bonding movie.
Sure,
Totally, yeah.
You know what's weird about it too? I have this memory of it though. One of the first times I went to Hollywood, I went to I was, you know, going down the strip, walking around with my mom and stuff, and we went to the Chinese, was it the Grauman Chinese Theater? And it was playing there. Tango Cash.
Okay.
And they had the huge marquee and like, you know, he had that laser sighting and all that stuff. And I just wanted to see it so bad. And I remember my mom was like, we're in Hollywood, you know, we're not going to see some dumb action movie. But I remember just dying to like want to see it. But, yeah.
If there was ever a time to watch it, it would have been there and then.
I know.
And if there ever was an action movie that like would have at least thrown your mom like a few, like, you know, you got Stallone, you got Kurt Russell, they got like, you know, a lot of like topless scene, you know what I mean? Like, there was one that was more accessible to moms that it would have been Tango and Cash, but
if we weren't, you know, walking down the strip, she probably would have gone, or if I'd been with my dad or something, you know, but I remember looking at the marquee and like just wanting to go in there so bad to watch it, but you know, not getting able to at that age. But no, it's
definitely a proud film of the fine VHS era, though, for sure.
Absolutely.
Dustin, do you remember the first time you saw Tango and Cash?
I feel like I was trying to think about it, and I think I remember just seeing pieces of it for a long time before I actually saw the whole thing all the way through. I remember watching like halfway through, because I was catching on HBO or something like that, or some whatever, you know, and then I remember like finally, it was one of those movies that like I never saw all the way through for the longest time, and then finally, you know, until you actually sit down and watch it, and then it was funny. I watched it today, and I haven't seen it in so long.
Same here.
Yeah, it was a trip, but yeah, I remember growing up not thinking it was my favorite of the Stallone movies, but I always thought it was a great pair between him and Kurt Russell. And like, I don't know why the franchise never took off, or what people's problem was with it. You know, I never understood that, but I just felt like, you know, at the time as a kid, you know, you just want Rambo 7, you know, or whatever, you know, you just want the same thing over and over again. You don't want any different variety. And I was just kind of like, that's cool, you know, but rewatching it now.
It's funny how when you're a little kid, your mind does work like that. you know, and it's like, so you can't put anything on, you can't like identify it as anything like, oh, he wears that little red headband in the Rambo movie, so I like those ones. You know, like,
right, exactly.
Like,
you
can't be like, well, I love the mixture of violence and social commentary and first blood, and, you know, really makes a you know.
They even make the joke in there when he says, like, who are you? Who do you?
Oh yeah. And that's already in the chat, by the way, which we will get to. But Mickey, do you remember the first time you watched Tango Cash?
This
had to be a movie date. Tell me you were on a date.
No. 89.
HBO?
No. I think I rented this one. I think I rented it, or HBO, something like that. I actually like don't remember my first time watching it, but I do remember I just watched it just today again for the first time in a long time.
Well, again, I thank you all for being such good sports about this. I did not get a chance to rewatch this today. I was running around doing a few things, but as we were talking about in the chat before the show, I never let it go too far without rewatching this. I did a panel with Clint Howard recently, so I rewatched it for that because it's one of my favorite Clint Howard roles. And we'll get into that. And that's also, that panel, by the way, is available on Fandom Spotlite's YouTube channel. Definitely check it out. And come on out to New Jersey HorrorCon. We'll be doing more in a couple weeks. So I'll get into my first time with Tango Cash soon. But before we do that, we should check in with our good friends in the live chat here. I see Mike Saunders and Angie Saunders in there. Mashup making geniuses. I see some, hey, Rambo is a pussy. Jay Ledford is back in the chat as well. Awesome shirt, Chris. Thank you, my man. Appreciate that. Our good friend Sean Gold of Gold's Code is, where's Ian? He's confused. Ian's a little under the weather tonight. He'll be back with us next week. And our good friend Alex Bonafonte, is this the guy that made your famous exploding bazooka boots? I love it. So yeah, there's already some questioning about FUBAR. Some jokes about lung herpes that are going over my head. Maybe I should have rewatched the movie. But I love, okay, so I'll get into my first time watching Tango and Cash, right? It's a movie that somehow 5-year-old me, which is how old I was in 1989, I didn't even like see this coming out. Like, I didn't even remember being like aware of it being a thing that's coming to theaters. I just remember the VHS like coming into the house, and that cover. It's like so iconic to me, that sort of white border slashed up looking weird torn cover. It just really, that is like the image of 1989 that is locked in my head. Like, that's just so 1989 to me. But at any rate, I love the movie. This was probably one of the early Kurt Russell movies for me. Like, I definitely was aware of who he was. I think from probably Big Trouble in Little China and
Big Trouble in Little China
and Overboard, honestly, were probably the movies that I knew him from. Yeah, just great movies. But this is one of those just like, you know, VHSs that was in current heavy rotation. You watch with like your older brother and sister, and you know, it was just like, oh yeah, this is a great action movie. There's, you know, tons of like, more than anything, I think we all fixated on the truck. Maybe it's because we're from the Midwest, but that fucking truck is still to me easily in my top 5 greatest movie vehicles ever made. I've even gone deep down a rabbit hole on YouTube, and there are some cool videos out there of like the truck now, people restore, you know, getting it to run again. And it's like, these things just sit in like these garages for decades.
Wow.
That's the millionaire dream, you know, like other people get like a DeLorean or an A-Team van or something. I think first thing I would get would be the Tango and Cash truck.
Yeah.
Won the Powerball.
No, you probably would get the Marty McFly truck.
Oh, that's true. That truck is awesome too. It's a toss-up.
I read online that the Bigfoot truck in it is their original Bigfoot truck. They just changed the frame, but like, you know, the original Bigfoot truck that used to be in all of the supposedly that's been confirmed that that's the real one. I can't remember the guy's name. It's like Chandler, Robert Chandler. Something Chandler, but he was the guy that had the original Bigfoot truck, and they changed the frame for the villain truck at the end that like comes out and attacks him. But I thought that was kind of cool.
That is really cool. I love hearing that stuff, like the truck from Over the Top, another Stallone classic, and a Canon great, of course. Lincoln Hawk's truck is also used in the 1989 movie The Wizard, with Fred Savage.
Oh yeah.
It's Spanky's truck, I think it is.
Oh wow.
Spanky from, they forget the actor's name off the top of my head. A great actor. Batteries Not Included, and a million other things. But God, yeah, another 1989 classic. That's another image of '89 for me, for sure. The Wizard. But this was sort of like the cooler image. This was like, the older kids. It was a more R-rated image. And historically, I mean, there's so much to dig into with like the production of this movie. I don't know how much you guys know about all the behind the scenes drama, but it's fascinating.
Not a whole lot.
It is pretty fascinating, actually, from what I've read.
So the whole thing kind of started out as producer John Peters, who would later become famous, or around the same time, he was already a heavyweight in Hollywood, but he had done Witches of Eastwick, and I think Beetlejuice, and he was about to do Batman with Tim Burton. So he was a big wig producer, and the idea behind the inception behind this movie was that it would be Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold kind of backed out, sort of, not too, sort of late in the game a little bit, like entertained the idea and then pulled out. And then there was like a scramble to get other people. They hired Patrick Swayze at one point. And then Patrick Swayze bailed for Roadhouse, which ironically, yeah,
this is the one where he didn't do it because he wanted some time off because of his knee.
But then he wound up doing Roadhouse.
But he wind up doing Roadhouse. But like the original story was that he passed on Tango and Cash because his knee was bothering him or something like that, and he was just like, I'm gonna pass right now, and then he went with Roadhouse. So.
It's wild imagining the different versions of what Tango and Cash could have been. And I love those stories too. It's like Demolition Man originally being envisioned as Van Damme and Seagal. That's one I just can't get over. But all those, like,
that would have been crazy.
I don't know how much, like, I mean, like, I love, Kurt Russell in this, and I love, Patrick Swayze, but to me, like, I don't see them doing much different. Like, I mean, if Swayze was in it, you'd still feel the same about the movie. To me, if I just feel like they're in that action avenue, they act very similar.
Yeah, but I read that initially they wanted Kurt Russell for Lethal Weapon in '87, but
really
he passed on it, and Mel Gibson took it.
Wow.
And then every movie after that needed the buddy cop, kind of thing. So that's what Tango Cash, obviously, buddy cop movie 2 years later. And they modeled the character of Cash after Riggs. That's why he has the hair. I mean, he basically borrowed Mel Gibson's hair for the movie.
Yeah. Well, like Kurt Russell had that hair, hairdo.
that beautiful mullet. Yeah,
beautiful
from Overboard.
But yeah, they kind of modeled the character after Riggs for Tango and Cash. So that's why he's kind of like the loose cannon, loudmouth. He's kind of crazy. And then Tango's more like the reserved, straight man, I guess you would say.
Which is funny, that seems like in hindsight for Stallone, that's like, oh, that's kind of a dunce role. Like, the other guy's the fun one to be.
But he played it like, Rocky and Rocky 4 or Rocky 3 rather.
Like the arrogant, pompous Rocky a little bit. I guess that's true. Maybe that is just what he was doing at the time. He did play a lot of like wasn't he also rich in Cobra? Wasn't there also
No, he wasn't rich in Cobra. The outfit that he's wearing, like especially in the opening of this movie, in Tango and Cash, it looks like the same outfit he's wearing in like that stupid movie Oscar.
Yeah,
when I
very similar.
Like, the same outfit from like in Oscar later. Like I was
it did remind me of Oscar too.
Yeah, that opening scene too is so reminiscent of Police Story with Jackie Chan, which it was supposed to be, from what I read, supposed to be like an homage to that, because there's a very similar scene in that where he stands and shoots and then they come out the windows. When we were interviewing Stephen Lambert, I was talking about Revenge of the Ninja, and I said, oh, that was an ode to Police Story with Jackie Chan, where they smashed through the windows when the van stops. And he reminded me, this was 2 years before Police Story. And I was like, oh, so you did it before Police Story, did it? So that scene is it's in Revenge of the Ninja, when Shogasugi is on the van. And when he gets into the van and then stops the van and they smash through the window, that's Lambo going through the window. But in this movie, they do a very similar stunt, you know, where he shoots into the engine block and then they shoot out and land on his feet.
Yeah,
But,
people really didn't want to wear seatbelts at that time, especially if they especially if they drove trucks.
A great stunt work in this movie in general. And Tango and Cash.
There was a lot of good scenes. I mean, a lot of good action. A lot of good action. The prison stuff.
Yeah, it's very.
Yeah, really good dialogue too, especially for a movie that was constantly being rewritten on set with all these different influences. Like I guess the director wanted one thing, John Peters, the producer, wanted another. He wanted like cartoonish, like over the top, you know, violence, and they all wanted to make like kind of like a statement about action movies of the day, or you know. So,
I think he was trying to do what's his name? It's Andrew. Something. I'm not going to even mangle his name, but the director's name.
Yeah, the director Andre. Of Runaway Train. Yeah.
Well, if you look at it, the movie, like he wanted to do a darker movie, but they ended up doing what we saw with Tango and Cash. That's why he did most of the principal photography, I guess, but then they removed him towards the end. He wanted to do a dark movie, but he wanted to do a very dark, more serious tone kind of film, which would have been interesting because if you look at Runaway Train, it's part prison movie, part escape movie, part on the run movie. The
I guess Tango and Cash is kind of
it's a little similar, but it's a mainstream, you know, bubblegum popcorn movie compared to, you know, Runaway Train. But it would have been interesting to do with it.
A similar milieu.
Yes, I believe so.
You know, it's been interesting, you know.
It would have, certainly every like multiverse version of Tango and Cash is something that I want to see. Like, you know, whether it's, you know, Stallone and Swayze, or Stallone and Schwarzenegger, or Stallone, you know, or Russell and, you know, Swayze, like whoever, you know, whatever weird combinations exist in the multiverse, I would totally watch the shit out of all of them. Especially considering again that like this is one of those movies that Stallone, you know, really took over everything, you know, like he did with Cobra, and let the director, or, you know, keep their name on it, but who was really calling the shots was Stallone. And, you know, so I mean, I've always been fascinated by those situations, and it happened to George P. Cosmatos with Stallone, well, and also a couple other times. Like apparently his name's on Tombstone, but that was really Kurt Russell directing that. So there's this interesting connection there, like, you know, like, oh, I learned this from Stallone, you can just be the star and fucking direct it, you know. Anyways, because who the fuck's gonna question you? But yeah, you're right. There was like these three different movies that sort of happen. There's like this sort of buddy cop setup movie, and then there's the prison escape movie, and then there's the like big 80s action third act with like a truck and some high-tech shit and a lot of explosions and like construction equipment. But I'm here for all of it, and throughout it all,
absolutely love it all. I mean,
and throughout it all, it's peppered with great one-liners. Like you reference the scene where they come out of the window, and Stallone's like, "Glad you could drop in."
And it says like, he's like, "Fuck you," and he's like, "I prefer blondes."
Everything's like a quip, like everything's like a, you know, a one-liner. Like every line of dialogue, like with Cobra, it's the same thing. Like every word out of his mouth, you know, is a tagline or something. You know what I mean?
Cobra had a darker tone, though.
Much darker tone. Oh yeah, much darker tone. That's one reason why they made this movie more popcorny, because Cobra was hard to get an R rating for, I guess.
Stallone was such a fucking brand, like throughout the 80s. You're right though. Popcorn is like a perfect way to put this compared to even Rambo 3 or Rambo 2, you know what I mean? Like this is like such light fare compared to like Cobra and some of these other movies, you know. I mean, over the top. I mean, it's so
80s. Like this movie is so 80s. Like from the get-go, when you hear the score, you know, by Harold
Faltermeyer.
Yes.
Genius.
He did like, you know, immediately you know that it's the same guy that did the Axel theme for Beverly Hills Cop. Like you immediately are like, I know the sound of this. He also did Fletch and quite a few other ones, but so 80s. It's also so Canon. There's so many players from Canon in this movie. You know, you got James Hong, you got all sorts of people in it. You know, the director, Shabadoo is in it for a second. You know, if you blink, you'll miss him.
Shabadoo's in it? How did I miss that?
I thought that was him.
He's the guy they take the leather jacket from. I'm assuming he did the choreography for Terry Hatcher's dance, because he's the Terry Hatcher.
Ozone was in it. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, it's Ozone.
You think he said something like, "Hey Elvis, what size are you?" or some shit like that.
Yeah. You got Benny the Jet in there too.
Benny the Jet was in it? Where was Benny at?
What's that?
I missed that.
I missed Benny. I didn't see Benny the Jet.
Towards the end, he's actually isn't he the thug that actually like Tango goes up against at the end at what's his name's house, or when they're confronting Pivot or whatever.
The
dude that's the one kicks to the table.
Yeah.
Is that band?
I don't know. See, that was I was wondering that too, because I saw his name in the credits. I saw him. I saw Benny the Jet in the prison scene. Oh yeah, I saw. That was. Yeah, I saw his name, and then I was looking out for him, and I saw him at the very beginning of the prison scene when they all confront him when they fall out the laundry chute. You see him for a second. And then I thought that was Benny the Jet too. I go, oh, okay, this guy must be Benny the Jet, but it didn't look like him. And I didn't look to see which one it was though.
It kind of looked like him,
and
then like the credit
for him.
The credit
I will
is there.
say I've been a big fan of him for a long time, and if you want a really cool Benny the Jet video, Sensei William Christopher Ford did an episode of 52 Masters with Sensei, or Kitas, I should say. But that's just a great, 1 hour, two absolute legends, world-class martial artists, really digging deep into philosophy. I mean, that guy, he is almost like Steve Jobs of martial arts to me in a way. Like, he just seems to approach everything in such a different thought, different thought pattern or something, but it all seems genius once you hear the reasoning behind it. But at any rate, not to get us too off topic here. Speaking of, I should actually touch on the chat because it's been going a little bit. And one of the people that is in the chat is our good buddy, Ian Klink. So we're glad you're feeling well enough to be with us in spirit, my man. Alex Bonafonte says, oh, look, it's snowing. That was a great, cocaine was so mystified by 80s films to me. Like, it was just like, I used to think it actually snowed cocaine in LA.
But it was in every cop movie. Every cop movie was based on, like, it would start out as a big cocaine bust or something like that. And then the cocaine would lead to like other mysteries or whatever like that. Like,
and it's funny. I feel like in the way that like in the 70s movies, it was always pot. Like every 70s movie was like these drugged out maniacs. They're all hopped up on the devil's lettuce.
Growing up watching like Miami Vice, dude, I was just like, yo, man, this shit is fucking. It rules the world. It's like you need a player. You need a playbook to know the program, pal.
And then somewhere in the 90s is when crack took over. So you had
New Jack City and stuff. Yeah, the tides change, of course. That's also like the way in the 80s the villains were always Russians. Like one of those things. In the 90s they were always like from the Middle East. That was kind of like no, seriously, that was what they did.
No, it's true. No, it's so true.
Talk about like this movie is like the who's who of bad guys. But bad movie villains. It's like
they're like
Jack Palance too. And what's it? James Hong? Is James Hong the other one?
Yeah, he's in it.
James Hong.
He's Quan.
I can't remember the guy's name right now, but the guy from Avenging Force is in it too. He's with James Hong all the time.
Oh, is he the one who's with Hong?
He's Lopez. He plays Lopez.
Yeah, he's the guy from Avenging Force that has the white mask, and the samurai sword. That's why I'm saying there's so many Canon people in it. And James Hong is the guy that says, only a ninja can destroy a ninja.
Yeah.
And then the director, was a Canon director. He's friends with Sam. There's just so much. The movie feels like a Canon movie. I mean, Canon was limping along in '89, pretty much. It was over. But like, it's a good example of. We've talked about it with Sam Furstenberg before of how Canon was made fun of by the major studios and they were a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they realized they were making a lot of money, the studios kind of tried to push them out and started to mimic what they were doing. And this is a good example of a Canon film produced on like a $40 million budget.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I mean, like, look at Die Hard. Die Hard could have easily been a Canon movie. You know what I mean? But they just put millions and millions of dollars into it.
Mm-hmm.
And
like instead of them marketing overseas, they just marketed it to people here. Finally, I mean, that movie doesn't get more American than that.
Well, if you look at it, you know, Canon died right around this time, or started to die, and then the major studios just started to mimic everything Canon was doing, but like with major money,
but spending way more money.
You also gotta like, you know, think about the fact that, I mean, like, you know, I don't like, obviously I didn't read who did the casting, but like Stallone knew a lot of these cats too from the Canon days and everything.
Oh, for sure,
so I'm sure.
I'm sure. I also feel like Roger Corman sort of opportunistically upped his productivity rate when Canon went to under 2 and was like, wait a minute, the home video market and the late night cable market is wide open for me now. Okay, let's go back to making 40 movies a year, you know. Jim Wynorski, make whatever you want, you know.
I mean, like the height of sort of, I mean, this is a roundabout guess, but you know, between like 85 and 95, it seemed like all the major studios were kind of mimicking the Canon thing. You know, I mean, action films from the major studios between like 85 and 95 were just huge. You know,
Rumble in the Bronx could have totally been a Canon movie.
Rumble in the Bronx, any Jackie Chan.
But like, if you think about it, I mean, that's like Rumble in the Bronx to me is like that moment where like one era has now ended and we're in a new era kind of thing. But even as far into the 90s as that, you feel like, wow, that's still total Canon, you know. And Stallone was especially, he did a few movies that were like that. If you look at First Blood Part 2, Ian always says it's the best movie Canon ever made. Like, it's the perfect Canon film, and it really is. And I do love it for that. It certainly doesn't have the, you know, dramatic weight of First Blood or even Rambo 3 for me, but it's just so much fun, you know.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about when I was watching Tango Cash, Stallone and Russell are two actors where I remember their characters' names. I don't remember that with a lot of actors. You know, there's John Rambo, there's Rocky Balboa, there's Marion Cobretti, there's, you know, Ray Tango, there's Snake Plissken, there's, you know,
because they're iconic.
Jack Burton, you know, like you remember these characters, like, because they're so good, you know.
Iconic roles.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I always hear their names in Jack Palance's voice, like in that, like it's probably a trailer line too, like, you know, Tango Cash,
Tango. I was saying that all day.
You know, you got to see, like, I think like the movie trailer has him saying that.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
It's such an 80s style trailer line. But I mean, who else could be the, you know, the heavyweight villain for Stallone and Kurt Russell? And that's, you know, we're almost at the half-hour part. When we get into that, trying to find someone to fill the shoes of Jack Palance is going to be almost impossible. But and there's a lot of weird stuff, like Michael J. Pollard is like the tech guy, and you know, again, Clint Howard is, you know, one of my favorite Clint Howard roles ever. The slinky guy, you know, he's just like madness with this, you know, crazy people aren't afraid of anything.
Great actors for all the small parts. I mean, the captain is Jeffrey Lewis.
I love Jeffrey Lewis.
Yeah.
I must have watched Double Impact a bajillion times, and it's a great another great example of a Canon movie. You know, it totally could be a Canon movie, except they would have absolutely just found some twins. You know, they would have never paid to, you know, put two guys. You know, they would even
my dad.
Don't forget Terry Hatcher.
Yes.
Terry Hatcher.
Looks amazing in this.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
Oh, yeah. And it's probably the first time, you know, a lot of us had ever seen Terry Hatcher. It definitely was for me.
Definitely my first time.
Yeah, it was like before Superman. Yeah.
You always remember your first time. Always remember your first time.
When you're a little kid, you know, I might have even thought it was the girl from Lost Boys. I might have even thought it was Jamie Gertz the first time when I'm a little kid, because you watch on like VHS and you're like, everyone's the same. Like, you know, the first time you see Gary Busey, you're like, that's Nick Nolte. I swear to God. Like, it's just certain people like that.
I don't remember her in anything else after that except for Lois and Clark.
Well, then Seinfeld, of course.
Nah, I didn't watch that. Sorry.
And then she obviously had a lot of success with Desperate Housewives, so I didn't really ever watch that show, but
I did watch that, but Lois and Clark was before that.
Right. I remember Lois and Clark. God, and I don't want to derail things too much, but I was really into the Superboy show at the time, and then Lois and Clark kind of like put the kibosh on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything, gosh, the 90s were such a mess. Again, getting back to 89 and Tango and Cash, the movie I think did well when it was released. But obviously it didn't do like Rambo money, it didn't do like the crazy, whatever money. But one thing I think is fascinating, and this is another rabbit hole you can go down on YouTube, is like Stallone and Russell gave this movie as big of a push as you can give as movie stars. They went on like every talk show together. They were on like Oprah and like Arsenio Hall and like all these, they were very much out and about doing all the rounds with the press. And like, it's fascinating if you watch them on Oprah, because it's literally they react to Kurt Russell like he isn't even fucking there. Like they're so focused on Stallone, and like all the women in the crowd are obsessed with Stallone. Like you would almost think it would be the opposite. Like maybe the female audience would be like more into Kurt Russell, or But
well,
like
Kurt Russell. Think about this. Kurt Russell didn't really have that major of a hit. I mean, we know these movies. We know like Escape from New York, The Thing, stuff like that. We know these movies because they're cult classics, but they weren't like breaking box office records.
The Thing was a flop, a major flop.
Yeah. Not like Stallone. Stallone was like, I mean, like he had Rocky, he had Rambo, he had all these movies that were like blockbuster hits. Yeah. So of course, like Kurt Russell was like, oh, it's Goldie Hawn's boyfriend.
Yeah. Well, between the 81 and what is this 89, right? Yeah. So like he was. Well, I mean, this is right sort of at the end of him becoming an action hero, really, Kurt Russell, because he went into the 90s and continued to be an action hero, right?
Yeah, because Escape from LA came out in the 90s, right?
Well, yeah, but he also did like Executive Decision, Breakdown. He did a lot of stuff in the 90s, action-wise.
Soldier,
Yeah, Soldier. But I mean, he was like a Disney kid before that, right? I mean, he was a Disney kid before the Carpenter stuff. Carpenter put him in Elvis, and he played Elvis, and then after that he was Snake Plissken, and if you look at interviews with him, which is interesting, is he says that he was terrified because he was a Disney actor. He didn't know, like, you want me to be an action star? So he said for Snake Plissken, he's just mimicking Clint Eastwood, and for Jack Burton and Big Trouble in Little China, he's just doing John Wayne. And he said, I just did my best impersonation of both of those guys, and it worked.
Wow. That's great. Now I have to rewatch those movies with that lens in mind.
Do it, and you'll see that he's just doing an impersonation of both.
So I wonder who he's mimicking as Cash, or I mean, well,
as Cash is just himself. He's himself.
Yeah, I think it's one of those.
You can tell when he's playing himself, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. But so we are past the half hour, so it is time for pitches. And I will touch up on anything crucial I may have missed in the chat in the meantime. But also time for you guys to hit us with your pitches in the chat. Anything you do want to see or don't want to see, or anything we may have missed talking about the film, like a favorite line or anything like that. But as always, we try and we like to hear from you when we can. So there is some Ian in the chat making fun of my shirt. Alex Bonafonte saying we must give credit to the film for kickstarting the SUV craze. Actually, that's an interesting thought. If you look at SUVs didn't really exist that much. They were called trucks prior to that. And you can see that thing in Tango and Cash, and then the next decade it's all Ford Explorers and blah blah blah. I'm sure Jurassic Park made a dent in that as well. Some people are rejoicing that Ian is here. Ian is proclaiming the best movie is Police Academy 6, City Under Siege.
Yeah.
So
his love for Matt McCoy.
And there's some also love for the music video of 1989, David Hasselhoff, Freedom. So and there's just some general Stallone and Kurt Russell fandom in there.
Speaking of music videos, the reason this movie has that 80s look, and like when they re-edited it, if you read about it, the director that came in to redo it at the end and edit it was the same guy that directed a bunch of the Prince videos, and he also directed Purple Rain. He directed Sign of the Times. He directed tons of Prince stuff. So they brought him in and said, hey, we need this to look slick. We need it to look like a fucking music video. And that's basically.
Oh, wow. Mission accomplished. Passed with flying colors. You know, the original cinematographer on the film got fired after a couple of days. It was Barry Sonnenfeld, actually.
He's a great cinematographer.
He's amazing. But Stallone didn't like the way he was being lit. And that's you know, Stallone fully admits now, he's like, I was so vain in the 80s. Like, you know, he's like, you know.
But you know what? You know, he had every right to be. Because the reality is like, you know, we were going to see these movies for one reason only. Was for badass Stallone kicking ass.
That's true.
So you like that man and you light him up well.
Yeah, he was drunk with power at that time. Like, you know, you better get it right.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Stallone, he was probably, you know, high out of his mind with success alone. You know, you just think about it.
He knows his angles. He knows his marks. He knows where he's got, like, you know, as far as like what's the best or what's going to make him look the best and stuff like that. So
if you look at his career pre First Blood, he couldn't find a hit outside of the Rocky universe. And then if you look at his career for the next like 7 or 8 or 9 years, he can't find a miss anywhere in there except for one, Over the Top, the $40 million arm wrestling movie or whatever, you know, however much they spent on that. And again, that's where Canon, to me, what became their own worst enemy. Is like, that's the movie they spent big bucks on. They you know, like if they would have spent big bucks on American Ninja or, you know, Revenge of the, you know, like some of these movies, like, oh my God, can you imagine? Like,
but you can't fault them,
you know.
You can't fault them,
and I love American Ninja the way it is, and I wouldn't want to change it at all. So
no,
I think Stallone like was hitting it with big hits for a while, and then I think Cobra kind of started the downward slump, sort of. You know, like his movies weren't doing as well. He got his next big hit, I think. I could be wrong, but I think his next big, huge blockbuster hit was Cliffhanger, which was like '92, because he was still coming out with stuff, but it wasn't like blockbuster.
That was the comeback. That was kind of like the comeback.
That was a comeback.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think Demolition Man was a pretty successful, you know, maybe not critically, but certainly commercially. But it's a tough, you know, I gotta say, it's a tough movie to bring back based on a number of factors. Like, it would have been amazing if they'd done it in like 1991 or something, you know, somewhere relatively around there.
Well, that's a part of my whole pitch, because later on he does this movie with a certain Antonio Banderas.
Okay.
Called Assassins.
Right on. Yeah.
So, and if you look at the cover of that movie too and everything, it's very similar to Tango and Cash. So I almost feel like I want a world where after this, you know, obviously Tango and Cash are now partners. They're buddy, whatever like that. And either they're going after Antonio Banderas or Antonio Banderas joins them as well.
So a crossover movie. You want a crossover with Assassins.
You want to expendabilize it. I was going to expendabilize it in a different way. You know, part of the reason I put the Gran-Damage in the title is a play, obviously, on the fact that they're both like probably grandparents by now. But I also thought, you know, you're not going to find a Jack Palance type, and I'm tired of pitching Christoph Waltz to be the villain in everything as much as I think he always should be. So you have to go a different direction. And I was going to bring in another expendable actor. I was going to bring in Van Damme to be the villain, because I thought that would be interesting.
That could be interesting.
But maybe it's kind of honestly already been done, because he was in Expendables 2, I think, or whatever one he was in.
I think
Expendables 2.
As a villain, and he was the villain there.
Yeah, as a villain as well. So you probably should find something else. But, you know, again, you have to sort of celebrate, I think, this era of action guys that aren't around anymore that still do the one-liners. And, you know, I miss when your movies weren't rated R just because a character smokes in them. Like, seriously, have you ever seen that? Like, this film was rated R for smoking. It's a real thing that happens.
Ridiculous.
Like, to think that Ghostbusters would be an R-rated film now is just insane to me. The original Richard Donner Superman would be R-rated for smoking.
Well, kids can find porn with a click of the button on their phone, and they're going to make it rated R if somebody's smoking a cigarette. I mean, in the movie.
But I mean, I don't know if that's all the way true, because the reality is like you're hearing a lot of things and you're seeing a lot of things on regular TV, cable TV.
Exactly. I mean, like somebody smoking a cigarette, the least of anyone's worries.
No.
I think.
But how cool would it be? I mean, like, like, okay, you talk about their grandpas, whatever. Obviously, Kurt Russell married his sister, so like,
their in-laws as well. Yeah. Exactly.
So you got that. Maybe they're retired. They're retired cops too. And then Antonio Banderas comes out of nowhere. Like I think like he's the bad guy, but you make it more like not like the Jack Palance bad guy. You could make Antonio the henchman, but like you could just make it just like there's this guy is like off in cops. Like Antonio Banderas is an assassin, and he's like maybe he's off in cops, and then he's going after one of them, like Tango or Cash or whatever like that. And then they both have to get back out of retirement, dust off the clothes, get back in that van. And the SUV
on the truck. The truck needs to come back.
The truck. Yeah, you can't do it without the truck. Yeah,
you cannot.
Oh yeah,
the truck. I mean, and I don't want like the new, Space Jason version of the truck. Like I don't want like, I put Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. No, like none of that shit. It's like still the old truck. Like
you do realize the truck would
like. It gets like half a mile to the gallon, like I want it just to be just old and great, because that's what these guys are, and it should be, and I don't want it to look like it's been under a tarp the whole time. I want it to look like it's been like shit on and scratched on and like dusted up and like, like I want it to look more fucked up than it did back then, because it's
got to look like them. It's got to look aged.
It's got to look worn. It's got to look like
thank you. 35 years old or however fucking old it is.
Remember the whole fucking area blew up, so that van is covered in, or that SUV is covered in like mad dust and mud and dirt from like, and it was probably impounded by the police because technically it was
what the fuck is this thing?
It's at the scene of the crime, so they probably impounded it and they have it, whatever it could be. But what's funny is like I don't know if you guys ever like watching this movie, I'm sitting there going like, who is this Owen guy that that Cash is like he goes to get the weapons and stuff like that? Does that guy actually work for the police or not?
That's true. They don't really explain that, do they?
Yeah. He's like,
because the reality is like he just
like
walks.
He
just
I
walks.
feel like that's James. That's John Peters, like being like, we need a James Bond type of guy. Mm-hmm. This guy comes in and he gives them all the weapons, right? And then they go blow up things with the space lasers.
Because like if you think about it, he walks into that place like like, oh, I need some weapons, whatever. Like nothing. Like nobody's saying like, dude, you just escaped jail. Who are you? Like if that was like police, they would have literally been arresting him on the spot.
Yeah, the whole thing is totally like that. The very beginning where he just throws down the cuffs, he's like, "Do I help yourself, gentlemen," or whatever the fuck he says, and then he's like, just like the whole thing is like written by like a 10-year-old boy. It feels like, it's like, and then they go in the showers, like compare each other's dicks for like the next 10 minutes, and it's like.
Yeah,
it's totally just like a fucking exactly. It's like a total just each vignette of a back of the bus talk.
Although Kurt Russell slips up in the shower and he calls him tripod. It's not out.
The whole movie's like it's
and it's so funny. And Stallone was so like you're almost surprised he would even allow like a "you have a small dick" joke to be in his movie. He was like you said, he was so vain, just so hopped up on like success and muscles and like millions and millions of dollars. It's almost shocking. And also to hear him say like Rambo is a pussy. I remember as a kid, that's the line. That obviously couldn't really have been a trailer line. I don't think you could say pussy in a trailer line, but it practically should have been. It should be in every fan trailer if they exist of this movie. Because that's definitely one of the most memorable moments. But yeah, it's tough. To me, I feel like getting the villain right is so crucial in like bringing this back. It has to sort of be someone of that era, but it also probably has to be someone that was never in an Expendables film. So it doesn't just feel like, Expendables light or something. That's why like Van Damme probably wouldn't work.
Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, Sigourney Weaver, always a great choice. Right? I was gonna say maybe Seagal because he was never in an Expendables film.
Yeah, well, I'd watch the shit out of that.
Yeah, I mean,
well, could you put him and Antonio Banderas?
I don't see why not. They're going up against the two greatest mullets of all time. Go up against the two greatest ponytails ever.
Yeah.
Griffith would be good.
Right.
Oh my
Mark
God,
DeCosta would be a good bad guy.
That's true. Yeah,
Martin Sheen.
I think this movie already feels
dude.
like a comedy, you know, with a lot of action in it.
I'm a Martin Sheen.
You could do
Martin Sheen lots of shit.
I'd see more of like a Michael Douglas than.
Or it could be Michael Douglas. Could be Michael Douglas.
A real Gordon Gekko type, you know.
And then you have
Seagal
Seagal and Banderas be the henchman.
Oh, that's a fucking movie right there.
It is a movie.
If you could write it in a clever way where they're like archetypes stuck in the 80s and 90s that are like can't fit into the new world.
Yeah.
It could be
and
funny.
somehow that saves the day.
You know, like they're old and they're kind of expired, like they're expendable, they're out of date, but they have to come out of retirement because, you know, the way they do things is the only way to get shit done, you know, in this situation.
Yeah.
Jack Palance when he did this movie, how old was he?
112.
111.
Yeah. So he was dead. He was dead.
He had already been dead for 12 years. So he's dead. He's this movie.
So Michael Douglas.
Everyone was afraid to tell him that he was dead. That's what happened.
So Michael Douglas could definitely be his kid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He could definitely.
For sure.
Yeah. 100%.
So there you go. Revenge.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, but he's not. He couldn't be his kid in the sense that like. You made me grow up without a father because he was already 45. You know?
Obviously, he takes over the family business.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly very, very possible. I like this idea of like the three villains because you have someone for Stallone to fight, someone for Kurt Russell to fight, and then someone for them to fight together. You know, and they have to be a little bit more. Clever, you know, you know, exactly like Jack Palance. You're not going to see a big fisticuff scene between Sly and Jack Palance.
Right.
Even though Jack any old man,
Jack Nicholson back.
What about Mel Gibson as the bad guy?
Again, Expendables 3.
Oh, that's right. He was in an Expendables movie too.
Oh yeah, Conrad. What the fuck was his name? Conrad Bain.
Tom Sizemore, such a crackhead.
Conrad Bain. Oh, I love Tom Sizemore.
Me too, but he's too screwed up.
Michael Madsen.
Michael Madsen's not bad actually. That's got potential for sure.
But I just think like Michael Douglas is a little bit more recognizable.
Yeah,
Michael Douglas would be perfect for the son of Palance. I could see him as the son. Yeah,
I could definitely see that for sure. And just you know, just a crime boss, you know, a guy who gives good speeches. You know, a guy who you know. He plays a great villain. We all know that. He plays great, at least dark characters as well. And again, like the villains are the best when they make them a little bit likable. Like one of my favorite villains is from Lethal Weapon 3. And again, the actor, I love this actor. He was in No Escape.
I
always forget his name. Stuart something.
He is great.
He's amazing. And just like the little thing at the beginning where he throws the guy in the cement, you know, he's like, now we got a relationship we could build on. You know, like
he's a good actor. Yeah, that guy's great.
He's a really, really good actor.
Or how about his real name escapes me. I just know him as Red Foreman.
Kurt Smith.
The guy from RoboCop. Yeah, that guy.
Of the era,
He could be a boss guy too.
Great.
I'll tell you what, I would love seeing him actually as the new weapons guy, right?
Yeah,
because he's the new weapons guy, but he's still doing them the old way. And again, instead of just a guy to put them in their place for a scene, like get out of here with your shit, you know. I'm fucking Red Foreman.
Get out of here, dumbass.
The bad guys are always more memorable, though. You're right. Like if you have a good villain, you have a good movie usually. You know.
Oh, totally.
Like I mean, like James Bond movies, they always depend on the villain. You don't have a good villain, then you don't have, you know. Everything else is secondary, really.
Because what James Bond's gonna, show up. He's gonna fucking do some gadgety shit. He's gonna sleep with a couple women. One of them's gonna turn out to be pretty sinister, but then maybe have a change of heart.
It's all by the numbers. Yeah,
it's all by the numbers. He's gonna order a fucking martini, play some cards, get in a couple chase scenes, and blow some shit up.
Yeah.
And I'm always.
But then you have what's his name? Like the villain with the cat, the bald. I can't remember his name right now.
Dr.
Guy from Halloween. What's the guy's name? Donald Pleasance.
Then
you have, Donald
right.
Pleasance
Oh,
as,
right.
a villain,
the one that Dr. Evil's based on.
Yeah. His cat and stuff. You throw with that. That's what makes those movies memorable.
For sure.
Gadgets, not all that shit.
Oh, for sure.
And this movie, I think, is more memorable because of the villains, to be honest. I mean, the two leads are funny and they're great together. And let's talk about the laser sighting for a minute, too. There's laser sighting on guns all through this era.
Fucking VCR, dude.
Dude, it's the size. It's bigger than his gun. It's bigger.
Oh my god, it's on the fucking poster and everything. Yeah.
The battery pack must have been like 8 D's batteries or something.
I know.
They also, what's funny? It's like they didn't pay off the scene where like Kurt Russell goes back to like the headquarters or whatever like that. He takes his gun out of the thing. He's like, hey, who fucked with my gun? It's they never paid off that scene. I mean, like, we know that, like, they did take some of the guns from, Tango and Cash, like, to, for fingerprints,
they used his gun to commit murder, right?
Yeah, that is a setup. They do kind of set in the trial. Then you're supposed to kind of go, when he said they were fucking with the gun, that's what happened.
But the gun was still there, so it's literally.
But then they brought it back, Yeah.
This movie has like all those 80s elements to make it like the supreme 80s movie, though. It's got the laser sighting. It's got the 80s editing, by the guy that did the Prince videos. It's got, the soundtrack that's like so iconic. It just feels so, it's explosions galore, I mean, I can't think of a more, it really kind of, it's got everything for the popcorn B action movie, right there at the end of the 80s.
But it's a Goober Peters Warner Brothers like studio powerhouse too, you know.
Yeah. But it's a good thing that Schwarzenegger was not in this movie, because if history has taught us anything, Stallone and Schwarzenegger combo movies, not too good.
Honestly, I wish that they could have done a movie together at some point. There's actually quite a slew of movies that were written with the intention of them doing, another of which was Face Off, which they got really close to getting them to, because they were both kind of past their glory days at that point. And Face Off could have extended their A-list run, I think, by another 5 years at least. If they had, with John Woo, and it would have been amazing.
Oh my god, I'm standing good speed, or no, not standing good speed. What is it? I fucked it up. Whatever.
But at the same time, it's just like a bridge too far to believe that, like, you could make fucking Stallone look like Schwarzenegger look like Stallone, like, because they're just so, like, one guy's like short and like sort of lean, and the other guy's like 7 feet tall and Austrian and fucking built like a fucking just
the accent alone.
The accent
isn't gonna work.
Whatever voice chip and shit. But still, it is interesting I wish they had done a movie together in the heyday at some point. Somewhere around honestly, the cliffhanger Last Action Hero years.
That's something that, as much as we have gotten movies with them later on, they weren't very good, but like the reality of it is, like, I never wanted, even back in those days, I never wanted a movie with Stallone and Schwarzenegger in it.
To me, that's like, that's like the first thing I wanted, separate.
And even when he got into the Expendables, Schwarzenegger, I felt like it was, I don't know, I might say this might be a controversial, might be a hot topic, whatever like that. I almost felt like he was Stallone's bitch.
Who?
Well,
Schwarzenegger, yeah.
Well, it was just a cameo, it was like after his governor days. It was
but I almost feel like he shouldn't have done it. Like, I really feel like it was like, even it was not a big role. It wasn't like meaningful in any way. I mean, it was just the pop.
But it just felt a little too late.
Yeah, and it felt like,
I can understand that. Like,
Stallone or Schwarzenegger is so far away removed from movies in general, especially at that time.
Yeah.
And Stallone was still like, I mean, he had Expendables came out, he was back on top again. Because immediately after Expendables, obviously he did the 2, whatever like that, but then he rattled off some other movies. Those other movies didn't really go anywhere, but he was
Escape Plan movies.
Escape Plan. Yeah. He was actively working again. Like, Stallone was back in the talks of like, hey, it's Stallone. While Schwarzenegger was like, the governor.
Yeah.
Escape Plan, like, I wish he would, like, give me another Cobra movie, bro, instead of all this Escape Plan shit and all these.
Or just give me,
he could have went back. He could have, but like, at that point, it would have been the perfect thing to go back and touch one of his previous IPs.
Yeah, Tango and Cash would have been perfect.
That would have been an excellent time to do that.
Any of that.
Cobra would be great too.
Cobra would have been spectacular.
Even just like, Stallone's at the I'm recutting my movies stage of his career or life or whatever. So like, give us the fucking 3-hour cut of Cobra. Like, people are foaming at the mouth for it. It's been talked about forever.
I don't think they know where that footage is. I don't think the footage is lost.
I feel like Warner Brothers. I feel like Warner Brothers could figure it out.
I just almost feel like if Stallone really wanted to do it, he would find a way.
Yeah.
Most of that, maybe Warner Brothers does have it. Most of that Canon footage they think is lost. We talked to Sam about that a lot.
Oh, that's terrible.
Once they went bankrupt, they paid all these places to store all that extra footage, and then once they couldn't pay the rent on it anymore, they just threw it all away.
Oh my God! What a crime!
Damn shame.
But unless Warner Brothers took all the footage, maybe, because it was a joint production between Warner Brothers and Canon, I believe. But I don't know. But yeah, that the original cut of that was like over 2 hours of Cobra, and then they chopped it like way down. I would love to see that.
Oh, me too.
I definitely have to in the sequel of Tango and Cash. I have to have Clint Howard back again too.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
Slinky Man needs to be out. Out. Put him in the crew too, because he's got a score to settle. He wanted Tango dead.
It could be. It also could be interesting if like there was like maybe an action scene or a chase scene involving like a bus or a train or something. He's like the train conductor or like the bus driver or something. Like kind of like a role that's easy to get good comedy out of.
Sure.
Oh, what about if he then turns into the weapons guy? He's kind of like on the straight and narrow now. Like he's like
trying to be good.
Yeah, trying to be good, redeemed.
That could work.
And like now, remember, like Cash never really met him. So like, so that's Tango. So like, so they go to like the weapon. Oh, we got a new weapons guy. I heard about this guy. Let's go see him, whatever like that. And they walk in, and there's fucking Clint Howard, and Tango's like, this motherfucker, like
It's funny. That's actually already Alex Bonafante. I'm just seeing this in the chat now. He just pitched that, actually. He pitched that a few minutes ago already.
Oh, really? Wow.
Slinky, Tango, and Cash. It writes itself. Make Hatcher a divorcee subplot villain, a typical South Florida SUV. Okay. That's
great minds think alike, Mickey.
There you go.
There must be some momentum with that.
I mean, you can't go wrong with any Clint Howard in your movie. You got to bring him back.
Oh, God, I love Clint Howard.
I mean,
absolutely love Clint Howard.
Yeah,
it's almost tempting to try and make him be the head villain, but
shit, he could be the club owner. He could be a club owner now, and like Terry Hatcher's still doing her thing on stage. Hey, it's Kiki coming to the stage.
She's still stripping 30 years later.
Well, she technically wasn't a stripper. She was just a dancer.
She's a dancer.
So if Seagal and Banderas are the henchmen villains, and Alex Bonafante is already applauding you, Mickey, in the chat, by the way. But if Seagal and Banderas the henchmen villains, which one fights Stallone and which one fights Russell?
Oh, Banderas fights Stallone.
Banderas fights Stallone.
Yeah, Mickey needs to see Assassins.
I gotta see it. I mean, like, I gotta see.
You want the return of Miguel Bain?
Isn't it better if Banderas fights Russell then, so we don't think of Assassins? Maybe.
No.
No, Mickey's like, no. It's always better to think of assassins. Like
Mickey just wants assassins too.
Mickey's brushing his teeth in the morning thinking of assassins. That's so good.
If somebody resurrected Andre the Giant and said, you know what, we're gonna make Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant wrestle again, you're not gonna say like, no, I don't want to see that. He should wrestle Shawn Michaels. That's better.
Did you say? I'm sorry. Were you about to say James Woods is the villain, Kristian?
I just thought of him. He'd be a great villain.
Yeah,
he would be a great villain.
Eric Roberts.
Yeah. Oh,
Eric Roberts.
Oh, fucking! He was already Expendables villain too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, though, he would be absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
But Barry Bostwick as the bad guy.
Bruce Willis.
Expendables.
Bruce Willis. Yeah.
I had another one for a second, and I sort of lost it. But
when did Planet Hollywood open up?
Early 90s, I think.
Early 90s?
4, I think.
90s. So
it feels very
90s.
Planet Hollywood-esque. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I think, obviously, you have to, get Terry Hatcher back in there. And I think the potential of them being in-laws, like, you have to explore that. There has to be some sort of next generation in the family.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's like a D storyline, even if they're not cops or whatever, like that has to, that's part of their lives, and that's you have to mold, these things work as like these movies work when they're like half Dirty Harry, half like situational comedy.
So they're like, captains now too. They could be captains, East Side, West Side captains.
On the eve of retirement.
Or dinosaurs.
Yeah, there would be a Lethal Weapon 4 feel to that, which is not the worst thing in the world. I do love Lethal Weapon 4, but it would make you feel like, oh, we missed these other movies then. We missed we missed 2 and 3, which we have. We should be on Tango and Cash,
but now they
13 by now.
They can de-age him in flashbacks now. We could get some flashbacks, some de-aged flashbacks, whatever they do now.
And there's honestly probably enough fucking leftover footage to like have some flashbacks from,
What I'd like to see is I'd like to see like what he did with Rocky 4 and do the dark original edit that the director wanted. If they had the footage. If they had,
that'd be great.
Supposedly they cut a lot of stuff out, reshot stuff, then reshot like more silly dialogue and stuff. If they had all that footage, I would love to see like the darker edit, sort of like that Rocky 4 edit we saw.
Oh my God, me too.
Something like that. That would be.
I would love that.
It wouldn't necessarily be better. I mean, I like the silliness of this movie.
Yeah,
but it would be interesting to see it.
If the recut Rocky 4 has taught me anything, it's like literally like I don't need to see
it. If it ain't broke,
fair enough, Mickey. Fair enough.
Just don't fuck with that.
You're right.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's still I'm still glad I saw these leftover parts to Rocky 4. It's very, very fascinating, just like as an insight into the cutting process and the editing process.
It's the same reason why I vote. You can't bitch if you don't vote.
That's true, right?
Exactly.
So now I can bitch about Rocky 4 recut because I saw it.
No
very,
robot.
Very true.
I didn't like it.
No robot. I don't like that.
I think we may be a little bit blurry on who the head villain could be, although Michael Douglas seems to have been, got most everyone excited, but I do think we have most of the pieces in the right direction, maybe not finely tuned, but like I think we have most of the broad strokes down. Alex Bonafante is just begging us not to incorporate this into Fast and Furious. That I can promise you, my friend. No, that doesn't interest any of us.
No.
It interests me.
Okay. That interests Mickey.
What about Tom Selleck as the bad guy?
Oh my God,
that's kind of interesting.
Oh my God, no.
What about Don Johnson? Speaking of
Don
the
Johnson,
Miami,
Don Johnson can work.
Dude,
Don Johnson I feel like could be good.
I feel like he was no.
You don't think Don Johnson?
No, I mean like I don't mind Don Johnson, but I just see him in a white fucking jacket with like,
Isn't that what you want? That was
Hans Zimmer soundtrack or whatever like that. Jan Hammer.
Hans Zimmer.
Great. don't disrespect Jan Hammer like that.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
they're both geniuses.
Hans Zimmer would be doing it now if the movie was made today. Hans Zimmer.
Fuck that. If that movie's happening, I'm not doing it without Jan Hammer. Damn it.
Yeah.
At least get Hammer and Schoen back together. But at any rate, I think we have most of the broad strokes in place for a decent start into a Tango and Cash 2. This is a little bit of a tougher nut to crack, and I'm sure we could have used some more of Ian's energy in the chat or on the show, of course.
It was a tough one.
It's a really tough one, but I think the likability of Stallone and Kurt Russell can push you over the top. No pun intended. But speaking of likability, I have an extreme fascination with all things Retrofiend related. So is there anything before we wrap it up that you can tease for the people at home, or maybe tell them about Riverbend or anything, making Riverbend or anything you guys got in the works?
We have several things in the works. I'm kind of taking some breaks right now to deal with real life stuff, but we're getting a lot of views on Riverbend, the making of Riverbend, Real Black TV on YouTube, who have 1.1 million subscribers. They were cool enough to put that on their YouTube channel. So we've been getting a lot of views. I think we have like 18,000 or something views right now, which is great.
Nice.
And then, we have several things with Sam, Steve Lambert, other things that are sort of on the back burner. I'm just trying to get to right now. And we also have something that we're in the works with Sam that could be potentially interesting, which is kind of a bigger project, but I have to talk with him this weekend. Maybe I shouldn't even be talking about it.
Well,
but a lot of things going on, but we'll see.
I'm extremely grateful that you'll drop even tiny little nuggets like that. I'm such a fan of everything Retrofiend does, especially if it has to do with Sam or Lambo. So I'm definitely looking forward to those. Mickey, anything going on? Rick Barth and the Line, any closer to shows, or just hunkering down until the summer maybe?
I think like next month we're gonna start getting the band back together again.
Look at this.
Nice.
Get the practices going and stuff like that, and try recording in June.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, I hope to see you guys out and about rocking and rolling real soon. Well, folks, Boba Fett is over, but you Fandom fans might want to check out Monday's Walking Dead Reactor panel, hosted by the governor himself, Captain Kyle, at 9 p.m. And of course, we want you to come back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. when we resurrect J5 for our Blank Man episode. As always, if there's a particular movie or TV franchise that you want us to cover in a future episode, let us know in the comment section on YouTube. And since you're already doing that, you might as well go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow Retrofiend Radio, Fandom Spotlite, the Hollow 9 Network, and Pop Culture Punk. Till then, back up those Betamax, rewind those Laserdiscs, and we'll see you at the movies.